Alrighty, just a quick update for those following along on the channel regarding the oil and the catch can issues. I wanted to provide some brief update here. I had something interesting happen with the truck the other day, and I think it provides some insight into why sometimes I get so much oil in the catch can. So I've been making adjustments, researching, what is the proper vacuum levels for the crankcase. And as you know from some of my other videos, I have a little suction gauge out of a plane, which is accurate down to 2/10, I guess. Is that right? Yeah, 2/10 of an inch of vacuum. So you can see right here, that's 1 inch of vacuum, and then I believe there's 5 divisions there. So 0.2, I guess. So that thing's pretty handy. It allows me to set the vacuum levels pretty accurately. I can get the truck idling, block off the fresh air breather on both sides, and then I can adjust my PCV valve, the idle circuit, to where I've got exactly the vacuum levels that I want, which is, I normally shoot for about 3 inches of mercury vacuum. So that works pretty well. And then, as I've mentioned in other videos, there's a secondary circuit that adds a little bit of extra orifice diameter when the vacuum in the intake manifold drops under acceleration. You know, if you're interested, you can go back and see some of the other videos I've talked about that stuff. The point of this video is I noticed something the other day that was very, very interesting. So everything seems to be in pretty good adjustment, and I've been driving the truck, and I can go 40 or 60 miles, and there's almost no oil in the catch can. We're talking maybe 2 milliliters, which is a good rate of oil in the catch can, because you figure if I drive 600 miles, maybe I've got 20 milliliters, which is slightly less than an ounce. Perfectly acceptable. It's doing its job, keeping the oil from going into the intake manifold and dirtying up the valves and the spark plugs and all that. So I was pretty happy with all that. The other day, somebody contacted me from Craigslist to buy a sledgehammer, and I said, hey, I'll run down the hill and meet you over at 7-Eleven. So it's 4 miles from my house to 7-Eleven and 4 miles back. I ran down there, and I happened to just check the catch can before I left the house, and there was maybe 1 or 2 milliliters of oil. I drove down, sold this guy my sledgehammer, drove back, and on the way back up the hill to my place, I noticed that vacuum gauge in there doing this, and that means it's pulling a vacuum. It's not getting airflow, it's pulling a much higher vacuum for some reason. So that can only mean that there is some sort of momentary blockage in the system. Well, the only thing that can be is oil blocking the pathway somewhere. Generally speaking, that means that the catch can has gotten full, but I had just checked it, literally 4 miles or 8 miles before, and it was empty. So what the heck? When I got home, the catch can was full. So it because I had just checked the catch can before I left the house, and then it was full when I got back. That means that in just 8 miles, it sucked in, 4 ounces of oil. And I started to realize that I think what's happening is, I think the hill, and I should interject, the hill to my house is crazy. You might as well just go climb Mount Everest. It is like, I think it's probably 45-degree ascent, and it's about maybe a third of a mile. It should never. They cut it into the side of a hill back in the 70s to build the area that I live in, and it's just this god-awful hill you got to climb. Normally, I come racing up it in the truck, but this one particular time there was a dead snake on the road that I noticed going down into town, and on the way back I went real slow trying to see where's this snake, because I wanted to see if I could look and see what kind of snake had been run over. So I took my time going up the hill, and so I would say I was on the hill 3 or 4 times longer than I normally am. Normally I fly up that hill you know, just to get to the top and up to my place. So I started thinking, well, why would going up the hill cause the truck to suck so much oil into the catch can? And I think I might have stumbled onto what is going on here. And anyone in the comments who is also having weird problems with, you know, seeing a lot of oil go in the catch can or into the intake manifold or smoke or anything, comment and tell me if you happen to have a very steep hill involved in, you know, your daily life with driving the truck. Because here's what I'm thinking. At the rear of the 22RE, there is an oil return hole that goes back down to the pan. On my particular motor, I have a high pressure, high volume oil pump from LC Engineering. I also have those rocker arms that let more oil get out with the additional holes. I think it's 3 holes instead of just 1 in a slot. So I have a suspicion that there's such a volume of oil getting up to the top end of the motor that it could be swamping the return. However, now I'm thinking it may not only be that, but it may be that when you figure out how much oil is pooling up here in the head, and there's little reservoirs that keep the oil, you know, where the valve lobes spin around. But if you think about how much oil is being deposited onto the top of the valve train cylinder head, and then all of a sudden you put the truck at a 45-degree angle, well, what's going to happen? All that oil is going to slosh to the back corner of the head and the valve cover and pool there until it can get back down. Well, if it can't get back down fast enough, for example, you're using real thick oil or something, or if for some reason the dynamics of the oil going down past you know, the cylinder head to the block, or if there's a slight misalignment in those holes that's causing sort of an eddy current in the oil or something, that oil is going to be pooling right at the back of the head and valve cover, right where that damn breather for the PCV valve is trying to suck in the crankcase pressure. And if you do have some crankcase pressure, it could be preventing the oil from really getting drawn back down in the crankcase, because the crankcase has pressure that's pushing against it. I think. I'm not sure. This is all speculative at this point. But I'm starting to think that the reason I sometimes see a lot of oil is because of this crazy hill I got to go up to get back to my house. And the oil will pool back in the back, and then that makes it available right at the rear of the valve cover. And if you go back a few of my videos, you see I modified the valve cover back there. I'm starting to think I might need to get in there, block off the back of that baffle, and move the location where it sucks air over to the left-hand side edge of the internal baffle, so that it's not, you know, able to suck that pool of oil, if in fact that's what's going on. So that's my current hypothesis. To that length, I have recently changed the oil in the truck from you know, 5W30, 10W40 sort of weight to 0W20 Mobil 1 advanced fuel economy oil. At this point, you know, I just want to experiment around and see what impact oil viscosity has on the truck. Now, I will add that because that's a thin oil, and it's practically pouring water in your motor. Because it's such a thin oil, I am running the Lucas Racing ZDDP zinc additive, which helps to cushion the engine components. It's typically a break-in oil, but you can certainly use it on older motors. If you're not familiar with it, research it. It's pretty good stuff. I used it when I broke in the engine, and I'm currently running it in conjunction with the 0W20 because, after all, it's a thin oil, and you know, it's the end of summer here. So that's where things stand. I also blocked off this little dipstick and put an M6x1 and put some thread sealant, 271 red Loctite, and an O-ring in there. because that stupid little dipstick thing has a bad habit of coming loose and messing up my vacuum here. So that's out of the mix. Everything else is pretty much the way it's been. I very carefully adjusted the vacuum levels. Like I said, I blocked off this fresh air breather here on the valve cover and into the intake, and that lets me get a super accurate reading on that gauge in there, so I'm able to adjust the idle circuit on this dual channel PCV valve to 3 inches of vacuum at idle. I've also taken off my little tape blocking part here for the moment, just because the idle air control valve seems to be functioning pretty well. I don't think it's messing me up. I do think maybe that little hole creates some turbulence, but you know, gotta kind of roll with it there. So anyways, that's for anyone who's following along with the oil consumption stuff, that's kind of where we're at. I'm still monitoring, you know, whether it's using oil. I have a 1,000-mile trip coming up that I'm gonna kind of monitor very closely, but before that happens, I need to get this thing here where it's not filling up. And like I say, I'm 95% certain that what's happening here is when I go up my 45-degree, you know, hill to the house, I think the oil is pooling at the back of the valve cover. So I don't know, I might have to, I have to get up to my house somehow. I might have to just race up the hill faster, which I know the neighbors are really going to appreciate. Or I'm hoping that the 0W20 might let the oil go back into the pan a little faster, but you know, it's hard to say. I will say that the 0W20 oil I did notice on the gauge in here, on this gauge in here, kind of the light's a little weird. On the factory gauge here, I did notice that when I switched to the 0W20, I did notice that across the board I had lower pressure, which is okay, because I kind of was worried that I had too much pressure when I was running the 30 and 40 weight oil. So anyways, that's the update. I'm gonna do some more testing here and see kind of if I can get this oil catch can situation where when I'm driving on flat ground, I can put down 100 or 200 miles and no oil. And then and I'm going to start checking the catch can before I race up the hill to the house. I'm trying to catch it where at the bottom of the hill there's no oil, and when I get up to the top of the hill it's full of oil, because that will definitively tell me that the huge amounts of oil showing up in the catch can randomly is related to going up a hill. And like I say, that will help confirm my theory that at a 45-degree incline, the level at the back corner of the valve cover and the head is pooling up with oil, such that the baffle system from Toyota, which draws from the back, suddenly has a sealed route effectively to suck oil up, and just kind of, you know, it's like having one of those crevice tool vacuum cleaners, and then you just put it on the top of the oil and away you go. I think that's what's going on. So for anyone who's been curious, I think that's where we're at. I got a little more testing to do, but like I said, I'm about 95% sure that is why oil mysteriously pops in there occasionally, is the hill to my house. So again, if anyone is having similar issues and you happen to have a crazy steep hill involved with driving home or driving to work or any of those kinds of things, please by all means comment in the comment section below. Okay, thanks for watching.